Yes, I want to thank all the folks here at Xposure for letting us use their stage, and the production crew is always very, very nice hosting us to do these projection events. So I thank everyone for doing that. And today we're with Anna Sotelo, who is based out of D.C. and is going to share with us a personal project that got her a ticket here to as a Global Focus winner. And here we are. So tell us how it started.
Hi, Frank. Thank you so much for having me. So the project that I'm showing is called Portraits of the Multiverse, and it's a visual dialogue between myself and Shipibo artist Sadit Silvano.
Okay. And that artist, what is the beginning of that?
So our photo project is a collaboration. It's a dialogue between two languages and two artists. So my language is photography, and I'm using light, and her language is Kené, which is the ancestral visual language of the Shipibo people, and she's using embroidery. And so our photographs are a collaboration.
Yeah, and show us as we go.
So our photographs are embroidered photographs, and they're this dialogue between the world that I encounter and I perceive through my camera and the spiritual and energetic realm of the Shipibo through the embroidery.
Okay. And how does it work for you to collaborate? Is that something easy? Is it something hard to learn? And your colleague who's collaborating with you, what is the give and take? Give us a sense of that process.
So a lot of my work is collective. Most of my projects are kind of this collaboration, and this project was born because over 8 years I was going to the Amazon on different trips, different assignments, and I had a lot of healing experience. I had a very bad accident. And in this world, I was kind of perceiving and just receiving all this information from a culture that was completely different to my own. And as I experienced it, I realized like I can attempt to depict it with my camera, but there's something missing from being able to portray all of these energies and culture that I'm experiencing. So I met Sadit in November of 2022. And I was kind of telling her about my journeys, and at the time I was learning to photo embroider, and she's a wonderful, wonderful Shipibo artist. And the Shipibo are the people of the Amazon basin, which is...
So this idea of collaboration, is that something that's completely natural to you, or is it something that you need to be pushed? Like what is that process? Because a lot of people are solo, right? And they just see their vision and they go with it. You know, that whole back and forth, I like this, I don't like that, can we do this? How does that work?
So I'm naturally very communicative, and I love collaborations, and I think photo is a collaborative medium, whether you're collaborating with someone else actively, like on this project, or with your subject, or with whatever. If your subject is nature, you're collaborating with the natural world. If it's a person, I think definitely photo is kind of the merging of two different entities.
And so these designs and these colors, is that something that you're working together with? Let's do this, let's do that. How does that work?
So the way that we approach this collaboration, I created a series of images that depict my experiences with the Amazon jungle in the Shanay-Timpishka river, which is in Pucallpa, and in the Nanay river, which is in Iquitos. And I took these images back to Sadit, who's from this area, and then I talked to her, and I told her I experienced these things. I could perceive these kind of energies, and there's a lot of things that are song-based. And the Shipibo have this visual language, which is called Kené. So she interpreted the Kené or the energies that she would see in my images. For example, here, this is Ronin, which is the serpent spirit or master of the Shipibo universe. And in my image, you could see before the embroidery, there's kind of an opening between the mist and the steam. Yeah. And when she saw this image, she said, here is Ronin, the master of our universe. It's kind of one of their principal spirits. And so it comes innate to her because she and the Shipibo are also very collaborative in their own work. So the way that they learn Kené, it's passed on from generation to generation. And they'll often work mother, grandmother, sister together while they're making these patterns.
And the colors, do they represent a particular region or a particular cultural thing? You know, how does that work?
So in this case, I really wanted each of us to kind of add their own conversation to it. So with the image, she was completely in control of choosing which colors and what they meant to her. For example, in this next one, this is the Cameranaco tree, which is a healing tree. And the yellow to her was the energy of the sun, which is required for all the plants to grow and to exist. The purple and blues were a personal choice and aesthetic for her. But I really, when I do these collaborations, I really like to see what the other person does and surprise me. That's kind of the exciting part about these works.
Right. And does she show you images during the process, or is it this is what she did and you live with it? How does that work?
In some of them, she'll show me during the process. Some of them I'm completely surprised. Like in this one, she wanted to surprise me because it was kind of the first image that matched with the starter, which was kind of, this one would represent my petition to the spirits of the jungle. But in other images, we would kind of talk about the process. For example, here, as it started, and this is a stingless bee, a melipona bee. And for this particular image, we worked with Rosa Vasquez, who's a scientist, and she explained to us what was the role of the bee in the larger ecosystem. And as Sadid heard these explanations, we kind of went back and forth deciding how and where to add the Kené. Right. So this one later evolves, and she adds Kené all over here after talking with Rosa about this particular species. So yeah, and some of them...
And how long does it take for her to get back to you? Does she need to go through a spiritual experience? Or like she'll get your images, and what is her side of it? Does she live with it for a month, 2 months, and start to think about it? And how does that work?
So with this one, we had talked before I went to the Amazon, and then as we looked through my archive, and she took them. We worked for about a month and a half, 2 months on one set. Then we kind of look at them, we group back, and then perhaps we're like, there's an image that we can add here. There's a part of the story that's missing. In this particular set, I think we worked over, the photos come from 8 different years, and then the Kené was done over 2 months, and then the bees come later. Those were done 2 years later.
Wow.
So it really just depends on time and what's going on with each of us in our own process.
In your own life. So she's working simply off a photograph.
Yes.
Right. So she's not in the Amazon doing that on an actual tree. This is on a print.
This is on a print. So I printed these images.
And how big are the prints?
So in order to photo embroider, you can't have something too big because it's paper and it'll wrinkle. So these are about 30 by 20 centimeters or 30 by 45 centimeters.
Okay.
And to her, these are images, as soon as she'll see the picture, because this is where she's grown up and where she's kind of, most of her visual repertoire comes from this area.
Right.
She'll immediately see or kind of understand what I was feeling. And it's very special to me to then see these images once they're completed, because it's like I can see what you see. Now it's revealed through the embroidery.
Yeah. And is part of this where you are in your life at that time? You know, as from a spiritual standpoint, you know, I broke up with my boyfriend, or, you know, I'm in love, or you know, school is great, or the kids are really annoying, you know, or parent passing. Like, you know, what piece of your life outside this spiritual space is part of this?
So in the set of images selected for this series, I had a very bad accident where I broke a vertebra, and on assignment I met a master healer, and he treated me with this plant, which is called Cameranaco, and they make a medicine out of this bark, which is from this tree. So the images kind of depict my approach to going to the Amazon, finding this tree, having this medicine prepared. And the way that they approach medicine is a little bit different than in Western culture, because you'll take these plants kind of like you would take a pill or a prescription, but you'll also dream, and you're also expected to be in the jungle and kind of connect and listen to the plant that you're taking.
Right.
So that's what I showed her, and she knew of these plants. And for example, this is the ayahuasca, which is a very important plant for them and in their cosmovision. It's one of the master plants.
Right.
They also call it Mother Ayahuasca. So in each image kind of connects with the other. Like these ones, she connected this plant with the Cameranaco bark in colors.
You're very much in this spiritual space, right? You're very much in this spiritual space. How does this reflect as being an educator, right? To get that sort of information into these young people? Are they looking at you sort of rolling their eyes, or like, because I'm sure some of them you connect with directly, right? Yeah. They get it. And then some are a bigger challenge. Like, how does that work to inspire the young people from a spiritual standpoint? You know, this is how you have to look at your work and, you know, get yourself embedded.
So as an educator, one of my, the way that I approach talking about these more abstract concepts, no, like spirituality, and I teach American kids, so telling them about the Amazon and Shipibo, and these are all the things that they haven't heard. My approach is kind of just inspiring their curiosity and getting them to ask questions, which are questions that I asked myself too in my first trips to the jungle. Why are you seeing a snake? And it's just kind of about expanding and allowing yourself to receive new information and just being open to it.
Yeah, so a lot of this is almost geography, right? To show them where the Amazon is and how they can go and have a vacation there with their families, right? I mean, all those different things. Is like, what is the moment where you see the light bulb go off?
So the moment that I see the light bulb go off with my students, I teach them photo embroidery, and what they embroider on their photographs I have them add parts of their imagination that don't exist in the picture, but that are important to them, which is similar to the approach that I took with this project.
Right. So, I mean, that, from an inspiring standpoint, it forces the kids to imagine. It forces them to be in another space that they normally wouldn't be because they're always on their phones and doing whatever they do. This forces them for this moment in time to think about color and space. And is the stitching itself important, the actual stitch?
Yes, so
tell me.
Sadid is a master embroiderer. So being able to, technically you have to, it's a longer process. No, you make some holes, then you stitch. You have to make sure, be very careful that the holes are far enough apart so that the paper doesn't rip. So it's a long and hard-working process.
And for your colleague that you're collaborating with, is that something new to her as it relates to putting the holes through the paper versus making a sweater?
So the Shipibo do a lot of these fabrics, and at the time I had just learned to embroider on top of photograph. So I taught her the technique, which is very similar to embroidering on fabric, and because she's a master embroiderer, she picked it up very quickly.
And how long will something like this take from when you send her the print to get something back?
So it's a very laborious part because there's kind of two components. It's looking at the image, connecting with the image and her spirit part and what she's seeing, and then the actual stitching takes a while because you're doing stitch by stitch. It's all handmade. I can't really give you a time because each image takes a different time, but there are a lot of hours of actual manual labor and a lot of hours of thought process before the actual embroidery. And
before she starts doing the embroidery, what is the conversation like as it relates to, here, I took this photograph, I was feeling this, I was feeling that, I was inspired. Like, how much information do you give her so that she can sort of calculate it in her head for her creative experience?
So with this set of images, I was telling her my intention with each photo and why each photograph was important to me, where we were. For example, here I was telling her that this is the Shanay-Timpishka river, which is a very important river. It's the boiling river of the Amazon. And there's parts of where the head of the snake is. It's a part where the people who live locally there believe the spirit of the serpent lives. So that's information that I told her. And then she was telling me that she was seeing in the geography patterns of the snake, which I hadn't seen in the beginning. So it's very much we're talking, looking, conversing. But at the end, I really want her to project what she's feeling. That's what I think is so rich about the dialogue, because it's not necessarily a commission, it's a conversation.
Yeah. And this process of you and her communicating, is that on the phone? Is that, through emails, text? Like, how do you do it nowadays with all the technology?
So when we did this series, I was living in Lima. So we had met very briefly, and I had told her, I really want to do something together, and that I was traveling to Paris the next day, and I had many dreams with her, and she had dreams with me. So then we got back together in Lima. I had a trip to the Amazon, and I was telling her, I'm going to go do this for, let's talk back when I get back. And then we looked at the images. I went to her house in Lima. We decided what we want to work on to print. Then I brought them to her. And a lot of it is just we sit down, we're talking, we'll have some tea. She sings. Her mother was there too when we were looking at the images, and kind of she's sharing, here I might see a serpent, or let me see. For example, here she saw another serpent in the image. So a lot of it is just looking, talking for this series, because we were both in Lima. And then she embroiders on her own with her mother, and it's a very sacred process for her. Now that I'm in DC based, we are working on more images. It's been interesting. Like, for example, with the bees, I'll send her printed images, and then we'll send WhatsApp messages. And if we have a consult, like Rosa Vasquez, the scientist, was telling us about bees, it's also very much by WhatsApp. Then we'll get together, we'll look at them, see like maybe this one needs this, or we can maybe work. I'm seeing something here.
I mean, this is also such a wonderful learning lesson, again, back to your students, to show them, you have to do research on these places to know the history of the rivers that used to run through here and what it means to the locals, all of that. Does that is that something that inspires the kids, or is it something that I don't really want to do that, I just want to take photographs? How do you convey to them that's really important, no matter what you shoot, is to know the history of whatever that may be?
So again, I try and tell them, like, photography for me and this project, it's in conversation. It doesn't exist in isolation. Like, when we were creating this, we worked with an anthropologist who had worked with Sadit before and with me. And I kind of give them this idea that when you're making a photograph, it's a matching of both you, the subject, and the context. So I think research is very important. Again, sometimes they'll make images and it's just from their imagination. And that's up to each artist, I think.
Go back to the bee shot.
One.
I mean, here, the colors are so profound, right? So you had a yellow had to be part of this, right? Mm-hmm. So when you get this back, do you, what is your critique?
So when
to the embroidering,
we got this back, the Kené that is here. So when it's more geometrical, it was a little bit more ancestral, and we were looking at this, the rounder Kenés on the bottom right.
Yeah.
And I was loving that. And so we kind of talked back and we listened to the messages that the scientists had shared about what the role of this particular bee was in the forest. And we decided, look at all of this space. Like, there's so much more information that we could feed in there. And so then she added more information to that part.
And when do you know that this collaboration is really going to work? Is it when you see some of her results, or is it in the conversations as it relates to she gets who I am, she gets my vision? Like, how does that piece work for you?
I think we clicked very well. All of the images that we've made together have been very beautiful. When I decide what to incorporate in a series, that's a little bit more, I think I do more of the thought process in what do I add, where do I place them. There's some images that are not in this series that work standalone, kind of they might be represent a specific part of the jungle that doesn't necessarily fit into this story. So in the selection, it's kind of just as you would select in a documentary or in a Fine Arts project what goes in the series.
And when do you know that this is done, this is complete? You finally cooked the cake, and now you're putting the cherry on top of the cake, and it's over. Like, how does that work for you?
So that is a great question, because I have many ongoing projects at the same time. I sometimes will leave a project for a bit and then wait and see what happens in the world around me, how I react, and then I'll experiment. For example, I don't think that this project is concluded, but I can take little tangents. No, from this, my new work is actually cameraless, and I'm collaborating directly with the plants.
With the plants.
So it's not this work, but it stems from that work. And I imagine perhaps from that idea, I'll go back and then have another dialogue with Sadit. So I don't necessarily put an end stop, like this is going to end February 2025, and then March 2026 I'm going to be working on something else.
Right.
It's not necessarily as linear.
And is it difficult to keep your collaborator involved and interested, because they have their own schedule, they have their own lives, all of that. So it's two questions. So that's one piece of it. And what part of your day in and day out life do we see here? Or do we? As it relates to what's going on in your life when you took these photographs, how does that play into the creative process?
So this set was really when I was traveling a lot to the Amazon over different years. I was going a couple times a year. This is mostly in the Shanay-Timpishka. I'm not living in Peru anymore, so I don't go to the Amazon as often. So these are mostly from 2022. The images I have now that are cameraless are from another part, and they'll relate to when I've traveled and spent time there.
So just as a creative challenge, could you collaborate with the same artist doing urban shots, urban photographs, or something beyond what? Because this is a natural fit.
Yes.
Right. Could you challenge each other?
We tried. We had an idea. So Sadit lives in Lima, in the Shipibo community of Cantagallo, which is a community of migrants from the Amazon region living in the capital. We've talked and overlooked a couple of images, but to me, the purity of depicting the jungle and adding this visual language in the place where it's born just worked so much better.
Right.
I don't close that idea, but for now I've kept it in its space of origin.
Yeah, it's just sort of interesting, again, as it relates to students and inspiring. I challenged myself, and it didn't work, right? Or it did work, that kind of a thing. And that's really where that thought comes from. How could you turn it upside down?
So we're doing, and it's not ready. It's kind of an experiment yet.
Yeah.
I'm trying some things with different colors. There's shots of the Amazon that are inverted, kind of distorting the energy from one way to another. And I'll talk about what technical specificities I use to create those images, and then we will see what she's come up with. So that has not.
All right, so that's in the next episode. So I cannot thank you enough for doing this. If you have any closing words, inspiration, now is your time. But thank you very much.
No, thank you so much for talking with me. And I just want to thank Xposure and the organizers, and really ask people or share that collaborating is an excellent way of generating dialogues with other people about the world, because at the end of the day, I think our world is made of community. And
exactly.
This is a project that is as much Sadit's as mine, and I hope that this kind of leaves the mark of how important dialogue and conversation is in all forms of art.
Well, there you have it. Anna Sotelo, we thank you all very, very much for being here. And the wonderful folks at Xposure, again, thank you for everything.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great.